This card is way faster than I thought. So I'm going to do this video in two sections, okay? There's going to kind of be the old school style where we benchmark it against a 4080 Super and a 4090 in rasterization, 3D Mark type of games and benchmarks. But that being said, I've only had this graphics card for like 3 days, and I've been grinding it 24/7, trying to get all the ins and outs of the Blackwell architecture, all of the performance differences, the overclocking headroom, the power draw. You're gonna see it all here. And then the second part of the video is going to be kind of much more subjective, because as we go forward into the era of AI and frame generation and upscalers, what have you, benchmarking graphics cards is gonna be a lot more nuanced than a simple press the benchmark. So in the second part of the video, we're going to talk about DLSS 4, we're going to talk about frame gen, and we're going to talk about the new transformer model. And then we're going to talk about kind of how my eyes perceive the differences, and if I like it or not, and the pros and cons of all those different technologies. And again, guys, leave a comment down below thanking NVIDIA for sending over the graphics card. I know that my audience has been waiting a long time to get day one real information, and we finally got it. Now, there was another caveat where the amount of games that supported DLSS 4, multi-frame gen, etc., there's only about 6 or 7 titles that supported it on the beta driver. Now, when this card launches on the 30th, there's gonna be 75 games launching with it. So then when that actually comes out, we're gonna do a revisit, and then I will also be doing a full deep dive video on the new NVIDIA broadcast. And let me tell you, NVIDIA broadcast is limitless with what you can do for it. So make sure you subscribe, because you are not gonna wanna miss that. Okay, so let's start with the first style of benchmarks, the more traditional ones. I'm going to be comparing the RTX 5080 against a 4080 Super and a 4090. Now, I didn't have time to get more graphics cards in there for testing, but I felt like the 4080 Super and the 4090 were the most important to compare against a 5080. The 4080 Super obviously is going to be the closest brother to the 5080. This has 80 SMs, 16 gigs of RAM, same memory bus as well. And then these cards also have very similar power limits. This is 350, this is 375, 380-ish. So then the goal comparing these two graphics cards is basically IPC increase, clock speed increase, performance per watt increase between Blackwell and Ada. And then 4090, obviously the last generation's flagship, because we want to see how much of that gap the 5080 has closed towards the 4090. All right, so I'm going to share the benchmark results with you guys up here. Sorry, do not have time to make nice bar charts. We're going ghetto old school style, no pad and paper. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is Blackwell overclocking / the new node that NVIDIA is using. Now, I know a lot of people online were complaining about how Blackwell is kind of like just a refresh and it's not really any different than Ada. Let me tell you, oh boy, were they wrong. So let me put this into context for you. Most Ada graphics cards can do about 1.1 volts on the GPU core. Now, some of them can go higher, some of them can go lower. It's about 1.1 volt on average amongst all the SKUs. Now, at that magical 1.1 volt on the GPU core, most Ada graphics cards can hit 3000 megahertz or 3 gigahertz on the core. Now, the Blackwell architecture, or at least this 5080 that I have, maximum voltage is 1.05 volts on the GPU core, and the maximum core speed is 3300 megahertz. Yeah, legit. Now, undervolting and voltage locking is basically broken right now, so I just used the slider and that worked fine. So to put this into context, that 4080 Super that I have has a 350 watt maximum power draw, and then the Founders Edition 5080 has a 375 watt maximum power draw. Now this card is getting over 300 megahertz more clock speed at only 25 extra watts. So if you wanted to actually do the math on that, you're getting 10% more clock speed for 8% more power draw. That's huge. So even though it's kind of like the same node, it's definitely like a 4nm++. There's definitely a couple of pluses in there after that 4nm. Now, we're not even talking about IPC here. We're literally just talking about clock speed, core for core. So keep this in mind going forward as I share the results with you of the 5080. Now, getting down to the 5080 itself, out of the box, it clocks around 2750, 2800-ish. And then as you know, I got it up to 3300 maximum. And then it would usually settle around 3250 under heavy loads, even in 4K. I was power limited a few times in some benchmarks, but not enough for it to throttle below 3250. So even power modding it wouldn't change the scores really. 375 watts is basically dead on what you want for the 5080. In terms of memory temperatures, I never saw them go above 81 Celsius, so there's no problems there whatsoever. I'm pretty sure that memory temperature problem is from the 5090 only, just from the heat density of the core. Now, the first two benchmarks that I'm going to show you are the only ones where I did stock versus max core clock. And the reason why I wanted to do that is to just see how far the core speed would scale in performance, right? So then here are the results for Firestrike and TimeSpy. OOB is out of the box. Max OC is the core slider all the way to 3300 plus the power limit all the way up. Now, in terms of the memory slider, I went minus 500 all the way up to plus 1500. And there was no score difference or FPS difference whatsoever. So for the 5080, out of the box, there's too much bandwidth for that card anyway. I believe it has 1 terabyte of bandwidth. It doesn't need that much for 84 SMs, right? So you're actually better off going minus 500 on the memory and giving that power envelope over to the cores. But then here you can see between out of the box stock and max overclock, on Firestrike and TimeSpy, you're getting about 8% performance uplift. So there's 8% more in the tank on the 5080 than there is stock. Now, here's the crazy thing. Against a 4080 Super Max OC, the 5080, well, in Firestrike is 25% faster, and then in TimeSpy, it's 18% faster. So that's a huge uplift over last gen. So you're basically getting 20 to 25% more performance for the same money. To be honest, I don't even understand how the hell it's even this fast. 4 SMs is about 5%, 10% clock speed, but it's like it's overscaling compared to what the grade 2 math says it should be scaling to, right? So there's some kind of black wizardry, black magic going on with Blackwell that's making it scale beyond what the math is allowing, right? It could be PCIe Gen 5. It could be the memory bandwidth. It could be that double integer. It could be lots of little things kind of nickel and diming, adding it up. But man, let me tell you, Blackwell is fast. And then next, the crazy thing, against a Max OC 4090 in Firestrike. I don't know what it is about Firestrike, but this architecture really likes it. This is the 1080p version as well, right? It's only 1% faster than a 5080. In TimeSpy, there's a bigger gap here. Well, there's an 11% advantage. But basically, somehow, 84 SMs of Blackwell are getting within 10% of 128 SMs on Ada. That's pretty insane. Now, here's the next insane thing. In these benchmarks, the 5080 was pulling 375 watts, and also in these benchmarks, the 4090 was pulling 500 watts. So to put that in context, the 4090 is pulling 33% more power than a 5080 for 11% more performance. So again, the Blackwell architecture is insanely efficient. I didn't know Nvidia could somehow pull out this black magic of even more efficiency on the same node. So we'll just blast through these other ones, but basically I did Port Royal next. And yeah, in Port Royal, we see even better scaling. Well, we've always known that since back in the Ampere days anyway. More RT cores is king when it comes to ray tracing, right? Clock speed itself doesn't tend to scale with ray tracing as it does so much with rasterization performance, right? That's why maybe it's just more of a parallelized workload. But again, the more cores you have, the more it works better in ray tracing and Port Royal. Okay, next one we're gonna do is Strange Brigade. I bet you haven't heard that one in a long time, right? Well, Strange Brigade specifically has the best implementation of Vulkan I've ever seen. That's why I wanted to test it out to see how the new Blackwell worked with it. And it seems Vulkan seems to utilize Ada and Blackwell equally, I want to say. Async compute was turned on for the benchmark, but the 4090 is about 14% faster. Max OC, max OC. Again, 500 watts, 375 watts. Okay, this next one we did Shadow of the Tomb Raider 4K, high settings, everything else kind of on defaults, no DLSS, no upscaling, nothing like that, right? But the 4090 over here on the left, 224 average, about 14% faster than the 5080. And it's just so funny that like the 4080 Super is just being left in the dust by that much, right? So let's say 197 divided by 167. So the 5080 is 18% faster than a 4080 Super in Shadow of the Tomb Raider in 4K high settings. Like it's strange. It's like the 5080 makes the 4080 Super look like a 70 class card. Like Blackwell is legit, man. And then we obviously have to check Call of Duty for the COD bros, right? Now, in terms of the 1% lows, this is a beta driver. I use the beta driver on all of them. I don't know. I wouldn't really worry about the 1% low numbers yet. I'm sure they'll have updated drivers for the architecture going forward, but we're just looking at the averages for now just to get a baseline, right? But basically 343 divided by 325. The 4090 is only 6% faster than a 5080 in Call of Duty. And then the 5080 is about 12% faster than the 4080 Super in Call of Duty. And this is a beta driver too. So when I do that follow-up video in a couple of weeks, when it's kind of more fleshed out and we've had a couple of driver versions, I'll come back and I'll do a proper in Warzone benchmark of the 5080 and a 5090 as well. Hopefully I have one by then, but then we'll get to see what Blackwell can really do in Call of Duty. Okay, so that's gonna cover it for the kind of legacy style benchmarks. Overall, the 5080 completely destroys the 4080 Super, which I was 100% wrong on that. I didn't think it was gonna be that fast. The amount of performance they are extracting out of 375 watts is ludicrous. If you're looking for a real RTX card, yeah, the 5080 is going to be the way to go. Or imagine like a LAN party COD Bro PC. You have a little handle, you're carrying it around, and you got a 5080 in that bitch. You are competing, my friend. I couldn't say the same thing about the 4080, but the 5080, yeah, wow. Okay, so this next part of the video is going to be kind of like the subjective part of it, where you're going to kind of ride along with me, and we're going to fiddle with some settings. I'm going to give you my honest opinion on frame gen, the different DLSS versions, kind of how they work. But basically, all the features that you're going to get with a 5080 on top of the 20% you get for the same money over a 4080 Super. I mean, I guess I should have told you this before we started the video, but you guys know me. The The test bench is this Thermaltake case, Z790i Lightning Direct Die EK, 14900K DDR5 8000. We don't do none of that AM dip shit. Haha, AM dipshit. I just made that up. That was a pure accident. But we don't do none of that on this channel. This is my single player setup. It's upstairs. This is my Neo G8 4K 240 hertz, right? So when we're testing out FrameGen and DLSS 4, you're going to want to use something that's 4K 240 hertz. You want to fully max out this technology, right? And in order to do that, you need something high-end. So this is actually a beta build of Cyberpunk. So it's actually pretty cool that I kept my save file. I have no idea where I left off in this game. But what we'll do is let's try out all of the different modes and see if we can see anything. So at 4K Ultra settings, oh yeah, look at that. 4K Ultra settings with everything turned off. It looks like the FPS is about 60 FPS with 54 in the 1% lows. Look how tight the average and the 1% lows are. Man, that's why you need an Intel CPU, baby. So that's pretty crazy that the FPS is that low in 4K. With everything basically turned off except ultra settings, right? So now let's try one of the Blackwell features. Let's try frame generation. Okay, so we're at 2 times frame generation now. This works on RTX 4000 series cards. Yeah, FPS is basically doubled. A little less than double. We went from 60 to 105. 1% lows went from like 50 to 96. Now, in terms of picture quality, that looks really good, honestly. It definitely makes it way more playable, which is interesting. I wasn't really expecting that. So now, if you have a RTX 5000 series card, you got access to 3 times and 4 times multi-frame generation, right? So let's try 3 times, hit apply, see if it goes right away. Oh yeah, see, now we're at 150 FPS, 160. Dude, this is crazy. I can't believe that this is actually working like this. It's like a magical frame generation button. And I haven't turned on any kind of like upscalers or anything either. So there's not really any shimmering or Vaseline or blurriness on the screen, right? We're only using frame generation right now just to improve the FPS because we're at 4K native. But we're not using, we're also not using ray tracing right now. I think this is how I would play the game. But let's try 4 times frame gen here. Settings. 4 times. Apply. Yeah, now we're at 220. Oh, it's bouncier now, though. Okay, so it's definitely a more unstable at 4 times. Okay, yeah, I think I would stick to 3 times then for this. Oh, and yeah, I can definitely feel a lot more input lag now as well, which is weird. Which I did not feel this at 3 times. So we set it back to 3 times. Yeah, it's weird. The input lag isn't there. I wonder why there's input lag differences between 3 times and 4 times frame gen. But yeah, so it looks like 3 times frame gen is the sweet spot for this. So we're gonna leave it on 3 times. I like that one the best. And then we'll do super resolution. That's right, yeah, DLSS super resolution. We're gonna try both Transformer and CNN models. And then let's do quality mode for now. Let's see what happens here. Transformer quality, apply. And now we're at 200 FPS. Yeah, this looks way better. So yeah, we're at 200 FPS but without that weird input lag of the 4x frame generation. Oh, that's snappy, dude. Yeah, that's nice and snappy. And the 1% lows are still crazy. Crazy high. So you kind of have to, when you're kind of quote unquote optimizing your game, you kind of have to play around with the settings like this and see what works best for you, right? That's kind of how you have to go about when you change settings in games these days. Oh, oh, I just saw that. You see that? There's a little shimmering on the light right there. You see that? And this little newspaper right here is doing something finicky. So let's try this CNN model actually and see what happens. Apply. Oh, that's like 20 times worse. Look at that. Do you see the light shimmering over there? So the newspaper isn't doing it now, but the lights are going. They're having a rave party over there. Oh, that's horrible. Yeah, I can't do that. Oh man, that's bad. Yeah, so the transformer model is way, 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 way better. Way better. Okay, yeah, but then the newspaper is starting to whack out again. Now that I'm back on the transformer model. So there's pros and cons to both models, but like the CNN model is not playable for me at all. At least like this I can kind of deal with, right? So this is with everything turned off now. And yeah, you can see how the lights don't have any shimmering whatsoever. Yeah, 3x frame gen, quality DLSS, and ray tracing on, with ray reconstruction on. Oh yeah, that's play. The motion blur is a bit too much for me though. I think I need a bit more FPS. But the shimmering on those lights are gone, which is huge. And the newspaper isn't freaking out either. So maybe the ray reconstruction is doing its job really well here. Yeah, look at that. That looks fantastic. Wow. Huh. Yeah, I just need some more frames. Let's try balanced mode. Apply. 130 FPS. That's much better. Oh yeah, that's much better. It seems like having the ray reconstruction kind of got rid of all the weird DLSS anomalies. Or at least in this scene anyway. Yeah, I think I found my sweet spot. This is how I would play the game straight up. This looks incredible. Yeah, 3x frame gen, path tracing, ray reconstruction, transformer model, and then I would use balanced mode for DLSS. This would be with the 5080 specifically. The 5080 is also running at 3225 megahertz right now on the core speed. It's max OC right now. This is fantastic, man. Look at this. Okay, so we got time to try one more game. This is Alan Wake. This is a new beta build as well. And so we're doing at 4K right now. DLSS option is on. I'm not really too sure what the legacy mode is. I wonder if this is the CNN model or not. But we're going to go with off for now. Everything just DLSS and native resolution. And then let's resume. Let's check the FPS out. Let's go over to where the water is. So we're at 73 FPS, 71% lows. I still don't feel any kind of like input lag problems at 3x. So let's try 4x. Oh yeah, see, that's nice. So yeah, this is totally fine compared to the 4x on Cyberpunk. This is totally fine. So 4x frame generation on Alan Wake is no problems whatsoever. So I can totally leave it like this. So now let's try cranking some settings here. Let's go graphics, ray tracing. Why not? Let's go ultra, baby. So we're actually at 100 FPS now, but the input latency is quite bad, unfortunately, because I think we're just pegging the GPU at 99% too much, right? Let's go down to quality then, 1440p render resolution. See if that fixes it up a little bit. Yeah, it does. That's nice. So that cut our latency in half. So I would play it like this then. 4 times frame gen, ray tracing to the max, and quality DLSS mode. So yeah, I'm seeing a little bit of a trend here. You want to kind of try to combine the number of frame gens between 3 and 4, and you want to kind of do quality or balanced DLSS mode with ray reconstruction. And then you kind of find this little sweet spot in the middle, depending on how you like it. Oh, oh my god. I didn't know this had jump scares. Look at dad ass. Look at that. Wait a minute. Dude, I gotta play this game for real. Look at that gullet. Jesus. Dude, it's hilarious. This is me when I'm 50 years old, unfortunately. Look at that head, too. Oh, man, it's like looking into a mirror. Boys, don't ever let me become like this. Don't let me do it. Yeah, the Blackwell architecture is a huge improvement, for real. It's not just a software update over Ada. You get a lot more per SM from top to bottom on this architecture. But one thing you could say is, shouldn't the game developers just optimize their games better? And that I kind of do agree with here, because when you include frame generation and the transformer model, path, ray reconstruction, all that kind of stuff. So it took me about 20 minutes of faffling around to find the right settings on kind of like a per game basis to how I like. And as a result, it feels like Nvidia is doing all of the heavy lifting for the game developers. But I do see what Nvidia is trying to do though, because if you were in Nvidia's shoes, what would your goal be? It would be to give the customer the best gaming experience possible. And then how do you give the customer the best gaming experience possible? You just do everything yourself. You don't rely on developers. But yeah, other than that, to summarize quickly, Blackwell, you get about 20% faster, pulls way less power, and best of all, coming from a gamer, this architecture gives you the freedom to choose how you want to optimize your game. So if you notice how I did it for Cyberpunk and Alan Wake, I try frame generation first because I don't like DLSS upscaling in general, so I try to avoid that, so I use frame gen instead. And then that gives me the better experience personally. Somebody else might like the DLSS better, not like the input latency of frame gen, right? So the Blackwell architecture is like a choose-your-own-adventure novel where you can go about it any way you want to fit your gaming style. And one final thank you to Nvidia for sending this over once again. It feels really good to finally be able to give my audience what they want on a day one review. My subscribers deserve the best information, and Nvidia was able to provide it to you guys by sending me the card. And one last thing I'll say, if you have like a 4070 or a 4070 Ti or a 3080 Ti, and you were kind of on the fence about picking up a 5080, you're good, man. This thing's a gangbuster. You will love the upgrade. Anyway, guys, as always, I will leave affiliate links down below. Click on those before, maybe a few hours before the launch of the cards, and then that's a great free way to support the channel. Anyway, guys, I hope you learned something, and I will see you in the next one. Talk to you later.